Perfection. We speak the word like it's a destination, something real and solid we can one day reach. We believe in the perfect body, the perfect partner, the perfect house, the perfect day. Every image we consume feeds this fantasy. Social media shows us carefully arranged moments meant to dazzle, and we forget that they're not real life. They're slices of reality, edited for impact, sharpened and filtered until they no longer represent truth. We start to believe that perfection is not just possible, but required. We chase it in everything we do. We measure ourselves by impossible standards and wonder why we feel like we're always behind. We tie our self-worth to external validation and constantly come up short. And in the process, we forget something crucial. We forget that real life is imperfect. Real life is messy. It's filled with detours, flaws, contradictions, and raw edges. When we chase perfection, we miss out on the beauty of the actual moment. We lose the joy of being real. Because the truth is, perfection is not a goal. It's a mirage. The more we run toward it, the more it disappears into the distance, and we're left exhausted, empty, and disconnected. Perfection is never where we think it is. Just when we believe we're close, it moves. You hit a milestone, feel a flicker of pride, and suddenly, a new flaw appears, a new standard, a new expectation. It's exhausting. The finish line keeps shifting, and we keep running harder, convincing ourselves that the next achievement will finally be enough. But it never is. Even when we check off the boxes, there's still an emptiness. That feeling of not quite there yet lingers like a shadow. We start to measure our worth by the things we haven't done, by the tiny gaps between where we are and where we think we should be. That mindset is toxic. It erodes our peace. It makes us overlook how far we've come. The truth is, the chase for perfection is designed to keep us feeling unworthy. It feeds on our insecurities and thrives on comparison. It's not about growth or excellence. It's about control. And the more we give into it, the more disconnected we become from ourselves. Perfection will always stay one step ahead. But fulfillment, that can be found here, now, in the messy, beautiful imperfection of this exact moment. Social media is a master illusionist. It crafts perfection out of fragments, a smile caught at the right angle, a vacation edited to look like a dream, a life curated frame by frame to appear flawless. And we buy into it. We scroll, we compare, and we begin to believe that everyone else is living a better, neater, shinier version of life. But what we're really seeing are highlight reels. We're seeing carefully selected moments, polished and filtered to hide the truth. Behind the lens, there are arguments, insecurities, bad days, and loneliness. Behind the glow-up photos are stories of struggle. Yet we compare our raw reality to their crafted illusion. We measure our bloopers against their best takes, and we wonder why we feel like we're falling short. Perfection isn't just a lie we're sold by the outside world. It's one we begin to sell to ourselves. Somewhere along the way, we absorb the message that to be worthy, we have to be flawless. We tell ourselves we need to be the perfect friend, partner, parent, creator, worker, human. We internalize every expectation and carry it like a weight. We make endless to-do lists, set impossible standards, and punish ourselves for falling short. And no matter how much we do, it never feels like enough. That's the trap. We start to equate mistakes with failure and flaws with weakness. We silence our truth, our vulnerability, our uncertainty, all in an effort to appear like we have it together. But what does that cost us? It costs us authenticity. It drains our energy. It disconnects us from ourselves. That inner pressure isn't motivation. It's fear, wearing a mask. The fear of being seen. The fear of not being accepted as we are. But perfection was never the goal. Being real was. Being honest. Being human. And the moment we let go of the need to be everything, we create space to simply be. Not perfect. Just present. Just enough. Just us. So we live in a world that honestly profits off our insecurities. Advertisements, they really thrive on making us feel like we're just not enough. Social media, well, it kind of magnifies that message. You know, we see these polished lives, filtered faces, and these carefully crafted narratives of success and happiness. It's, pretty easy to fall into the trap of comparison, to scroll through someone else's highlight reel and suddenly feel like we're behind. We start asking ourselves, why don't I look like that? Why isn't my life that exciting? What am I missing? But here's the thing. The truth is, we're not missing anything. We're just like looking through a distorted lens. What we see online isn't reality. It's a performance, a digital illusion. And when we compare our real raw lives to someone else's curated version, we're just setting ourselves up for suffering. Comparison, honestly, it feeds the illusion of perfection. It convinces us that happiness is about achieving a certain look, lifestyle, or milestone. But you know, joy doesn't come from measuring up to someone else. It comes from embracing who we are. The messy parts, the ordinary days, the imperfect steps. When we stop comparing and start connecting with ourselves, with others, with the truth, we actually reclaim our worth. Not by being perfect, but by being real. Perfection isn't just something we see on screens or in ads. It's something we absorb, slowly, silently. It seeps into our thoughts, into our beliefs about who we're supposed to be. We begin to internalize the myth. It becomes the lens we look through, the voice that whispers in our ears. when we fall short. We tell ourselves we need to be better, do more, look flawless, never make mistakes. We set impossible standards, then punish ourselves when we can't reach them. And the worst part is, we think this is normal. That pressure doesn't just sit on the surface, it seeps deep, affecting how we show up in relationships, how we pursue goals, how we talk to ourselves. We don't allow room for error, for growth, for being human. Every flaw feels like a failure. Every mistake feels like proof that we're not good enough. And in chasing some ideal version of ourselves, we lose sight of who we really are. We trade authenticity for approval. We silence our true voice to maintain an image. But honestly, no amount of perfection can make up for the loss of self. Reclaiming that truth starts by questioning the standards we've accepted. From the moment we wake up, we feel it. The pressure to perform, to look the part, act the part, and keep it all together. It's relentless. We're expected to succeed at work, maintain relationships, stay healthy, look flawless, and somehow stay calm through it all. Society doesn't just suggest we do these things. It demands it. And when we falter, we feel like failures. Not because we actually are, but because we've bought into a definition of success that leaves no room for humanity. This pressure isn't about growth or progress. It's about image. It's about checking boxes so we can prove to the world that we are enough. But honestly, the more we chase that validation, the more disconnected we become. Life turns into a performance. We become actors in our own lives, trying to keep up appearances while quietly drowning underneath. Authenticity takes a backseat to perfection, and we start to measure our worth by how well we can pretend. We weren't meant to be perfect. We were meant to be real. And real includes rest. Real includes failure. Real includes saying, I'm not okay without shame. Letting go of the pressure begins when we choose truth over perfection. We live in an age of filters, both literal and metaphorical. With just a few taps on a screen, imperfections vanish, smiles are brighter, skin is smoother, and honestly, life looks effortlessly beautiful. But beneath the polished photos and those curated captions is a reality no one really wants to talk about. The anxiety, the insecurity, the constant comparison. We scroll through highlight reels and start to feel like we're the only ones struggling. But the truth is, everyone filters, everyone edits, everyone hides a piece of their truth to look more perfect. This filtered reality distorts not just how we see others, but also how we see ourselves. We begin to question our worth based on likes, followers, and perfectly posed snapshots. We forget that those photos are just moments, not the full story. Behind every flawless image is a real person, with doubts, fears, and flaws. And when we compare our unfiltered lives to their edited ones, we always come up short. It's not wrong to share beauty or joy, but, we have to remind ourselves that what we're seeing is not the whole picture. Real life is messy, it's raw, and honestly, it's okay to show that. In fact, it's necessary. That's where connection begins. Perfection is not just something the world imposes on us. It's something we begin to demand from ourselves. Somewhere along the way, we internalize the idea that we must never slip, never falter, never show weakness. We hold ourselves to impossible standards, expecting to be everything to everyone, always on, always achieving, always improving. We think if we can just be flawless, we will finally be worthy of love, of success, of peace. But that pursuit becomes a prison. It traps us in cycles of self-criticism and shame. We begin to see our mistakes not as lessons, but as evidence that we are not good enough. We become our own harshest judges, dismissing progress because it isn't perfect. Every flaw feels like failure, every setback proof that we are not there yet. And the cruelest part is, there doesn't even exist. The standards we chase are often built on illusions, shaped by cultural expectations, media ideals, and childhood conditioning. And in trying to meet them, we lose touch with who we really are. True growth doesn't come from self-punishment, it comes from self-compassion. We break free, not by being perfect, but by accepting that we are already enough, exactly as we are. Everywhere we look, culture reflects back to us, a distorted version of what it means to be worthy. Billboards flash images of ideal bodies, films show flawless protagonists, influencers post filtered glimpses of curated lives, dressed in designer labels, and set against backdrops of tropical sunsets and clean kitchens. We're bombarded by messages that tell us perfection is not only possible, but expected, and if we're not chasing it, we're somehow failing. This constant exposure begins to shape how we see ourselves. We start measuring our worth against these manufactured ideals. We scrutinize our bodies, our homes, our careers, and even our personalities. We begin to ask ourselves, am I good enough? Not based on truth, but on a fantasy created to sell us products and keep us consuming. And honestly, the more we internalize these ideals, the further we drift from reality. Culture's version of perfection is honestly so narrow, exclusive, and often totally unattainable. It just doesn't account for the richness of human experience, the depth of our flaws, or the beauty in our mess. To truly reclaim ourselves, we really have to question the mirror we're looking into. We need to remember that the standards we're trying to meet were never actually made to honor who we really are. So, what do we actually do with this mess we've inherited? The obsession with perfection, the addiction to image, the constant need to prove our worth. Well, we start by breaking the spell. Not all at once, but like piece by piece. We name the illusion for what it is, a never-ending mirage that just thrives on our insecurities. We stop chasing what doesn't exist and start grounding ourselves in what does, our reality. That means noticing when we're performing instead of actually living. That means asking ourselves, who am I doing this for? When we overextend, over-edit, or, overthink. It means choosing authenticity, even when it feels risky, especially when it feels risky. Because perfection isn't just a fantasy, it's a trapdoor. The more we chase it, the more we kind of fall away from ourselves. Breaking the spell is the quiet rebellion. It's, speaking honestly, instead of impressively. It's showing up with a messy face, an unfiltered truth, a vulnerable story. It's reminding ourselves that imperfection is not failure. It's actually evidence that we're alive. It's the difference between looking flawless and feeling free. That's how we begin. Not by fixing ourselves, but by unlearning the lie that we ever needed fixing in the first place. There's a strange, radical kind of peace in giving yourself permission to be real. Not impressive, not polished, not perfect, just real. That's the freedom we've been denied, and honestly, distracted from the ability to exist without explanation or disguise. To feel joy without apologizing. To feel pain without hiding it. To walk into a room without performing. When we stop trying to meet everyone else's standards, we start discovering who we actually are. That's like the beginning of something powerful. Because being real isn't about lowering your standards. It's about shifting them. It's about choosing truth over image, connection over comparison, and meaning over metrics. It's refusing to shrink yourself to fit into someone else's box. It's not always easy. In fact, it can feel terrifying to drop the mask. But on the other side of that fear is liberation. You don't have to curate your identity like a feed. You don't have to chase applause. You don't need to impress anyone just to feel valid. When you stop trying to be what the world demands and start being who you are, flawed, evolving, inconsistent, human, you tap into something unshakable. That's freedom. That's power. That's real. Perfection is clean, sterile, predictable, and honestly, boring. Real life, though, that's where the magic happens. In the spills, in the chaos, in the moments that don't go according to plan. The beauty is in the mess, in the unscripted conversations, the awkward silences. The belly laughs at the wrong times, and the tears that fall when no one's watching. That's life in its rawest form, and that's where meaning lives. When we stop treating imperfections as flaws and start seeing them as texture, evidence that we're living fully, we change the narrative. We stop chasing flawlessness and start chasing truth. The chipped paint, the cracked voices, the uneven paths, they tell stories. Stories of resilience, stories of love, stories of growth. We weren't meant to be statues, we were meant to be stories. And stories are messy, they twist, they turn, they unfold in ways we never expect. But that's what makes them worth telling. So let's stop editing ourselves out of our own lives. Let's stop waiting until we're perfect to show up. The mess is the masterpiece. And when we embrace it, we find something perfection could never offer. Depth, connection, and the wild, unscripted beauty of being truly alive. If you agree, ink, rage, repeat. Share, like, and subscribe. See you next time.